Welcome to this week's market preparation video with Bill by Trading. Everybody is talking about how the SPY and the NASDAQ continues to look weak. I'm going to kind of reiterate that sentiment. It doesn't look the best, right? The cash index here, it continues to kind of form within this wedge. We couldn't get above this $7,580 level. We're below the 8, below the 21. We have the 50 EMA just above. We're filling pivot on gaps here. We have one that is right here at 7,425 and then 7,396. So that's next level of interest. We had the 50 EMA there, so we could get a bounce here early next week, or maybe like gap down and buy up. But really, that's what happened on Friday. Gap down, got bought up, and then just sold off. And that's not a sign of a strong market. Looking at the RSP here struggling a little bit, kind of chopping around at all-time highs. NASDAQ cash index, this is not the best look. We have closed well below the 50 EMA now for the first time in a while, basically since April. We do have a gap here around 28,065. That's the low. And we could potentially fill that this week. We have another very slim gap down here. But then the next level of interest, in my opinion, would be this $27,300-ish area. I'd be mindful of that. And, listen, don't be shocked if we come all the way down here to the 200 EMA and kind of maybe even potentially retest the breakout. I was watching a YouTube video this weekend by Babyfish, and he mentioned something very accurately. What made this run happen was memory. It was chips. Go look at those names. I'm not going to touch on them right now because I've been talking about them for the past 3-4 weeks. They look broken. They're the better places to be. And so that continues to ring true. They're starting to get some more selling here. We got a little bounce on Friday, but a little bounce on a gap down isn't anything meaningful. Most of them are falling to prior support or closing below the 50 EMA and start having like a waterfall type look to them. It's not strong. And so the names that made this move happen, they're starting to unwind. So there's a lot of talk over the past 2 weeks or so. There's been money flowing into the Mag 7, right, which is a good thing. However, if that does not continue to happen, what could potentially happen if the Mag 7, the names that mostly move the market, if they continue to sell off and the memory and chips and the optics and all that stuff that was making this market move also continues to sell off, don't be surprised if we hit these levels below. Don't be shocked. That might not happen, but you have to be prepared either way. And so this isn't a screaming buy. It's not a screamingly strong market just yet. It needs some time, right? This might be a little rough quarter. This might be a time to sit on your hands and just kind of monitor and watch and press less buttons. Save the money that you made, most likely, during this run up. The more buttons you push, the less likely you are going to keep your money. Keep that in mind, okay? Bitcoin struggling at the 50 EMA still. It looks decent. It could be turning around. There's a lot of positivity going around Bitcoin right now, but we'll see what actually happens there. And this is what I'm talking about here. SMH falling. Most names look like this. They're below their 50s. They're hitting prior support areas, but if they fall, if they fail below, you got some moves that can happen here. So don't be shocked. Just stay on your toes, manage your risk if you're trading these things. If you're long term, like, and you got a nice cushion, sure, whatever, you do you, but there's still better places to be, such as cybersecurity. This is nice. It's chopping around sideways. Ideally, it breaks out this week. Otherwise, it might be a little too wide and too sloppy for too long. And this also might continue to pull, add into a potential market correction here. All right, what is focus this week? My favorite longs here, LNG. I am in this from last week still. I posted about it. This little circle here was my entry. Go watch my trade review video. I have my entry and exits and why and blah, blah, blah. This is my entry here, and my stop loss was below the daily pivot on this day here because it broke and it held it. So nice tight risk. I think it's like 1.5% or something like that. And so, I'm holding that into next week. It's holding the 5, it's holding the 8, it's holding the 21. Everything's going up. Energy, thanks to the war again, is back in play, etc. So this is a play on natural gas here. If you want to talk about AI in the future, natural gas is a play on there. Whether that, so we're very energy constrained. There's that as well. So LNG, I think it has, it has a pivot on gap right here, 270.86 to 269 and 97 cents. That's my first target here. Otherwise, maybe 275-ish. We could potentially get there this week. It looks like a nice reversal, double bottom, breakout, retest, and hold, and then it moves up. So I was waiting for entry here, and I got my entry on Thursday. I'm holding it through the weekend. MPC, I've been saying this again, past few weeks. These are names to be in. They are very strong. It's trending to 5 EMA, which is a sign of a very strong market. It's a place to be. This is a little extended now. I would like a little bit of a price correction or a pullback, etc. But that's not happened just yet. VLO, the guy that stopped me out twice, here and then here at my second shot, it just continues to run up. If that didn't happen, I'd had a nice 15% or so trade, but that's neither here nor there. You get in and you accept whatever happens, right? The trade setup was there, just simply didn't work. CrowdStrike, so anything cybersecurity is looking good. There, I did a video for a viewer request on how to do measured moves out of bases that are going into all-time highs. Go watch that. Is my FinX video. I went into detail about it. I'm not a super fan of them, but I still went over on how to do it because you never really know. It's an old measurement model that you can do. Pretty standard. Either way, breaking out into all-time highs. It's only 6.5% away. This is coming into a level of interest for me. Anchor VWAP from this low, the 8 EMA, etc. It struggled at this pivot on gap from this high here, so don't be shocked there, right? Anytime we have a pivot on gap, we have to be mindful of that area because it tends to act as resistance and or support depending on where it is. But what we do not want, I don't think, is to give away this entire bar. This was a 12% move in one day. Don't be surprised we're getting 3 days of some profit taking. But we look for our entries here. I think it's a name to be in. Same thing with Palo Alto, right? Cybersecurity, it's a name to be in. It's only 2.5. Nice base breakout and a little base here, getting tight. Get a little volume. Failed to move lower on the gap down. Did nothing but get bought up and maintained 50% of the move of the day. And OKTA, again, cybersecurity name. Go look at CIBR. It's a name to be. Those names look strong. Okay. It's a place to be in. Nice push here, little flag here. Now, what we can do, we can see if, yeah, this looks pretty nice. If you do a downtrend line, you can kind of measure a potential entry with the break at that downtrend line. It looks, risk would go, if it breaks tomorrow, maybe even if you try, it's a little riskier. The odds are that it won't. This can easily get undercut and then rallied to stop out any stops on a 30-minute time frame there. But either way, their names to be Apple. Apple continues to be strong. They might have a pretty solid moat on memory in the AI trade in the future, especially coming out with their M7. It's a strong name. It's a little extended in the tooth right now. So I would wait for maybe a pullback, a time correction in this pivot on gap from this breakout day, $326.01 to $323.03. That's kind of the area that I'm interested in. Matter of fact, I'm going to set an alert right now. And see what happens. Meta, I do like Meta. The gap down, sold off. Where did it hold? It held at the 200 EMA. It held somewhat close to this breakout area here. It's a little sloppy. I would like for it to get tight. We do have a gap fill now. So that gap is now filled, which is great. And this gap is now officially filled, which is great. And so what I am interested in here is if we can maintain above this anchor VWAP, continue higher, maybe fill this gap. Either way, this looks pretty. It looks good. I like the bottoming tail. There's a lot of good news with Meta coming out now, getting into compute. And if you think money's going to flow out of memory and chips and flow into mega caps or Mag 7, that's what I'm looking for. This might be a name to pay attention to. GE, I like GE. I had earnings. It's it's under the anchor VWAP from earnings currently. I believe it is. Oh, I might be lying. When was it? It was in the morning, so we can set it here. I never said it. I lied. It's above the anchor VWAP. So the average participant is above water from earnings, which is nice. It's also holding the all-time high breakout area. So, and it's holding the tag of the 50 EMA. What we would like is for price to get a little bit tighter within this range, give a nice risk reward setup, and then break out to the upside. So I do like GE. Those are my favorite long. Favorite shorts, I still like MSTR short, especially with continued Bitcoin weakness. I was saying this last week. The entry was here on Wednesday. I took a trade on Thursday and took a small win on it. I did not like how I did not have, I'm sorry, I took a small loss on it. I did not win on this trade. I got stopped out here and then only for it to close, where I got in at nearly in the gap down. So I didn't have cushion and I got stopped out and then it did what I wanted, what I was kind of anticipating, but just, I was early. Poor timing on it is what it is. I still like the short side. It's still underneath the 8. It's still underneath the anchor VWAP from this most prior low. So the pressure is on or at least it's holding it now. Pressure's on the downside though. All right, pressure's still down. It doesn't look good. Lunar, space theme, still broken. It's a little extended to the downside. What I'm looking for, last week I mentioned, hey, it's at a prior support area. If this breaks, it can really go. It broke and it really went. It was down 16% last week. Then this is one of my top looks. I just didn't catch it. So what I'm looking for this week is a bounce to this prior area. And then probably 16 or so, 1550 or so, maybe the 8 EMA, and then you look for an entry to risk against and for further downside. So it break down, retest, and continue on down further. Maybe we get to $10 or so, something like that. The similar plan for PL, Planet Labs, absolutely crushed. It's at a prior area of support. The real breakdown, I'm going to move is at 1990 or so, $20 or so. And so I would watch for a break of 20. And then if that gets rolling, maybe you got 1875 next, then 1650. Then you got this gap down here from 15 to like $13. So you got to manage level by level with this one, but it is weak. It's underneath the 200. SpaceX, I took a short here last week. It was a day trade. I thought I was pressing. I went over it. Go watch my SpaceX trade review video on the details on that. Downtrend, I thought I was pressing with it being, X amount of days down. So it was just a quick day trade. It was a nice trade. But if I held, it would have been a pretty even nicer trade, obviously. But we're in this game to manage your risks, so you can't look in hindsight because it could have easily gapped up against me, and I'm not in that business. I try not to be. GEV also looks good. I don't know. That's a mistake. This should not be a favorite short. It should be a favorite long. I like that it undercut and rallied. It held this. It undercut and rallied all of this, right? This level here. It reclaimed this rather important level of support, the 50 EMA. I like this continuation long into next week. So that is a favorite long. It is a mistake. Also, NVIDIA should not. What happened here? NVIDIA is also a favorite long of mine. Why? Downtrend line, breakout, comes back in, but this could be a potential higher low with an indecision doji here. You shouldn't be shocked that it's finding prior supply at a prior supply area that it didn't hold in the first place. And so it's coming back into this obvious level of prior resistance. And it's nice that it pulled back and potentially set a higher low. If this is a higher low, ideally what happens is comes down, bounces, maybe tags again, gets tight, another higher low, and then it breaks out and it can continue its uptrend. But we have earnings this week, so we'll be mindful of that. Other longs that are interesting but are a little extended, but are in play because of the war. CVX looks good. ExxonMobil coming back into this range, so that looks good. D-Dog continues to chop around here. It needs to break out in order for it to be in play. Otherwise, I'm not interested. Snow is a little sloppy, but it's holding where it needs to hold. I'm looking for the breakout. PLTR, it's getting tight, but it has a lot of supply above potentially, like this anchor VWAP from 2 earnings ago, and then the 200 EMA, then this pivot on gap. So the risk reward is not the best. Hood, I do like Hood. This pivot on gap from this day held. I missed the entry. Is also confluence of the 50 EMA. I'm pretty sure I went over this scenario last week. It's a potential. It happened, and so I'm watching it still, holding the anchor VWAP from the all-time highs and retesting it. So it looks okay. It just needs to hold this area. If it does not hold this area, we're looking at, again, go level by level, $93 or so. If that fails, maybe we can look at like 85, 88 to 86. And if that fails, anchor VWAP from this earnings, maybe here at 84. So we gotta be mindful of it, but it looks pretty decent for bounces. Speaking of bounces, neoclouds are at interesting areas. Now, just recognize they're in a huge chop zone. This failed to break out. And it's going now to the prior support area. It's an area of interest for a potential bounce. Looks like the bounce started on Friday. Maybe we get a little bit follow through, but you can see it's at prior areas. They're all below the 200 though, except NBIS, which is one of the stronger ones. But neckline, don't be surprised if we get a bounce to the neckline and then we continue on lower. Maybe we get the 200 tag at $150 or so. That is a potential. We just want to watch these levels and watch them hold. Nice base. It exploded out of it, and now it's coming back to earth here. Shorts, INTC, kind of in no man's land here. It failed to hold this. It's underneath this. I'm looking for a bounce to the prior, like $103, and then to the 80 EMA or something like that, and then maybe a potential short to this gap area is number one, $79. Then number two would be the 200 EMA at 73. If that fails, then we're looking at the breakout area here, this breakout area with confluence of the gap fill of $68.28. HAL, this should not be a short. This is undecided. It has earnings this week. It's not a huge mover, but it's getting tight here. Or just be mindful, earnings is on Tuesday, so I'm not going to spend too much time. TXN at a prior area of support. We have earnings this week. Tesla, we also have earnings this week. I believe it's Wednesday PM. Yep. Let me go back to TXN. TXN is also Wednesday PM. So Wednesday PM, we also have Google. So Wednesday night is going to be big. These are some names that really matter. Google got hit on Gemini news. It's at a prior, the breakout area. It could potentially be setting a higher low here. This gap down to, it didn't really get bought up super strongly. It's underneath this anchor VWAP. So all of these participants from this low are now underwater. The pressure is on the longs here. So Oracle, this continues to get smoked. I'm looking for a bounce. This could be an oopsies, an undercut. And if we reclaim it, kind of like PLTR right now, maybe it's a good sign. I've been looking for a bounce for like 2 weeks in this name. It's not happening. And so let's move on. Netflix, this worked out nicely. So this is a prime example of what I would be looking at on any gap downs on like Tesla or Google, two prior levels of support. This plan worked out very nicely. I was saying, before the night of, or actually I was saying Thursday night, watching the gap down is around $68 to $66. I said a nice level to watch is $66 and the gap down to get bought up. What happened? We gap down to this prior area of support, $66 or so, hit the low of, what was it, 65.08, and then we had a 15-minute low, and then it broke out of that range and it did nothing but get bought up. So you could have had, the stop loss below the low of the day, or if you go on a 5-minute timer or 5-minute time frame, watch the low of the day that is set. You could have had a pretty nice trade here, maybe 1.5 R or so, or if you decide to hold it for whatever reason. But that's basically what I look for on gap downs on earnings days. You gap down to prior support areas, you look for an opening range to set, and then you find the bias for the day and you set your risk and you let go. Whatever happens, happens. IBM, it continues to hold underneath this pretty important support level. If we zoom out, what's next? We already kind of tagged it at 204. It looks like we might be heading back to that if we cannot hold and chop this low, hold and chop around here. We might start heading down lower. It's a little sloppy right now. it needs to tighten up, but it can go either way. And then KMI, we also have earnings here. This is a little bit sloppy as well within a natural gas realm. Um, but it's huge. It's a nice large consolidation. When this breaks out, it could be a nice breakout. We just need some sort of catalyst, it seems, and maybe again Wednesday will give us a nice reason to become a catalyst. All right, what do we have economic wise this week? Let's look real quick. Shout out trading economics. It's good stuff. Category impact. Let's just look at high important impact stuff. We don't really have anything coming up this week. So last week was a um, pretty important. I just had the U.S. on here. Yep, was a pretty important week. This week, the importance is earnings. So be mindful of that. Do your homework. I hope this preparation is helpful for you. Again, here are my favorite longs for the week. Here are the favorite shorts for the week. We'll see if we can keep things strong going here. We're not here to predict. We're here to prepare and manage risk and do your homework. Okay. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, ask questions. I'll help as I can, and trade well. Later.